Flight Tech Blog. Today we're going to take a look at the HyperMac series of external batteries for the MacBook, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, iPod, iPhone, iPod Touch. You get the idea. It's kind of a battery that charges all of the Apple portable devices. Now, as the MacBook and MacBook Pros become more and more where the user can't change the battery, well, it starts to become more of a concern, especially on a long trip, as to whether or not you're going to have enough battery life. So let's take a look at the new HyperMac series of batteries. Now, I became intrigued by these, not so much because I have the new MacBook Pro that you can't change the battery in, but I am going on a trip that's going to be about a 6 to 8 hour flight. And I know I'm going to run out of power, of course, within that time. Now, speaking of running out of power, you know, Apple and all the other portable manufacturers talk about, well, this laptop should be able to get 4 or 5 or 6 hours or 8 hours of battery life. I have never in all my years of using a laptop or notebook gotten the amount of battery life that they say you're supposed to get. And I guess you'll get that battery life if you're not doing anything, not running any apps, you know, pretty much just screen all the way down. Yeah, it will last that long, but in my case, I'm actually doing real work, so I don't get that kind of battery life ever, you know, that they talk about as maximum. So what do I get? Well, on average, I get, let's say I'm on a plane and I'm turning off the networking, turning the screen down, turning the keyboard light off, turning everything off I can turn off. I'll usually get on my current computer maybe 2.5 hours worth of battery. 2 hours, 20 minutes probably on average. And that's if I'm watching a movie and doing something that's kind of processor intensive, but again, keeping the screen down. Well, okay, so if I take a second battery with me, that'll get me maybe 4 hours to 5 hours worth of battery life. And I do have a second battery. But I was interested in this particular solution because it allows you to actually run with your internal battery first, and then using this external battery, you can not only continue to power your computer, but also charge up the internal battery, so you're getting, you know, almost 3 times the amount of life that you would get out of a standard second battery. So let's take a look at the solution that I went with. First of all, they have 4 batteries to choose from, and they range in price, I believe, starting at $199 on up, you know, at $100 per model, depending on the capacity of the battery and, of course, the size and weight. So I went with the HyperMac. It's the MBP 100. This is the second one on that stack because, again, I wanted to keep it small and light enough that I wouldn't mind carrying it. Now, they sell a monster-sized battery that'll probably last you all day long. But, again, then the trade-off is going to be the weight and the price. So, again, I went with the MBP 100. And I tested it under the worst case scenario. I wanted to see what I would get if I were at work. You know, in other words, not trying to conserve battery, running full blast, and the whole 9 yards. Now, typically under those conditions, networking, wireless, surfing the net, the whole 9 yards, I'll get maybe an hour and a half out of my battery. So that was the conditions that I tested this in because I figure under worst case scenario, I could always get more battery life on a plane or something if I managed the battery better. So I wanted to see what I would get under extreme conditions. So let's talk about first what comes with this. Now, of course, you get the battery itself, whichever model you go with. You also then can choose your cord. Now, by the way, this is the first third-party accessory I've seen so far to date that has the Apple proprietary MagSafe adapter on it. So I don't know if they're just cutting these off and, you know, reconnecting them or whatever, or they found a license with Apple. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're giving you actually the official MagSafe connector that will power your Apple accessory. So you get to choose between the one for the MacBook and MacBook Pro or the one for the MacBook Air, depending on which one you want. And of course, you can order both plugs if you want both. In addition to that, of course, you get the battery itself. And again, all the models have kind of the same kind of connections. So on your left-hand side, you've got, or on my right-hand side here, you've got the DC out, which this is where this plug will go that plugs into your computer. And then you've got a USB power port. So this is where you would plug in your iPhone or iPod or other USB charging device. You've got a status indicator letting you know how much battery is in there. So I'm full at this point, which, by the way, it takes about 4 hours to charge this up completely. You've got the button for testing and on off, I guess. Well, actually, it comes on automatically, so test light. And then you've got the other side, which is where you plug in the AC to charge the battery itself. So that's what the battery looks like, and that's how it works. And let's get into my test results. Okay, so here's what I did. I started first thing in the morning on a work day, and I just, unplugged the power with a full charge on my MacBook Pro, didn't turn anything off, and ran until the battery ran down. So what did I get? Well, I started at around 10 a.m. and then it lasted on battery, like I said, about an hour and a half. So at about 11:30, the MacBook Pro's battery was going down, so I plugged in the HyperMac. Then the HyperMac lasted, now keep in mind I was working the whole time, it lasted till 1:30 before the HyperMac battery itself was drained. So at that point, it was doing two things. It was powering the MacBook Pro so that I can keep working, and it was charging the battery that had been depleted at 11:30. So at 1:30, the HyperMac was done. Then the MacBook Pro was charged up to 70%. Now keep in mind, I had Photoshop open, a whole bunch of things going, so it never reached 100% because of the workload I was putting on it. But it did get the battery back up to 70%, and then at that point, of course, the HyperMac's dead, so I unplugged it, and that battery, again, at 70%, lasted me till about 2:25, 2:30-ish, around that time. So from 10 a.m. to 2:25 p.m. in the day, worst case scenario, using everything, draining the power, running screen, full brightness, I was able to run off the internal battery and the HyperMac. And as a bonus, even though the HyperMac could no longer charge or power the MacBook Pro, it did have a little juice left in it, so I tried to plug in my iPhone just to see what would happen. My iPhone was down to 80%, and it did charge it all the way back up to 96% before being completely dead. So even though there wasn't enough power left to power the MacBook Pro, there was enough power left to get a little more juice to charge up the iPhone. Now, of course, you can do them both at the same time, and then your results will vary. But I just decided to see was there anything left in it, and therefore I plugged in the iPhone. Now, as a bonus, when you order this today, and I'm not a sales guy here, but I'm just letting you know, if you order it while they've got this deal going on, I haven't even opened this yet, but they will include at no extra charge their car adapter. So and another thing I've never seen is a car adapter for the MacBook Pro other than a typical inverter. And of course, this uses the same cord that you use for your HyperMac. So you just plug that in there. And now you could actually run your MacBook Pro, MacBook Air from your car's DC outlet. So, and again, that's a bonus. I don't know how long they're doing that, but when I ordered it, I saw, hey, I'm going to get the car charger too, so why not? So that's it for this video review of the HyperMac External battery. It's definitely a keeper. If I had it to do over again, would I've gotten the next size up now that I've actually seen this in my hand and seen how heavy or light it is? Maybe. But again, I didn't want to spend too much money, and I think the next size up would have been like $400 because this one was $299. Would have been $400 to get the next one up, and I just wasn't ready to put down that kind of cash for a battery that I wasn't sure how long it was going to last. So conserving power, I should be able to easily get through that 6-hour flight with the HyperMac and one MacBook Pro battery. If I take both of them, it should be a no-brainer. That's it for this video review of the HyperMac battery. My name is Terry White. Thanks for watching.